Ladies and gentlemen, welcome along to Too Many Games, and we're coming back today with another army review. We've had a few videos coming out pretty quick, which has been great, so hopefully you've been enjoying that. If you're interested in Epic Armageddon, then by all means like, subscribe, and keep an eye out for more videos coming. So today we're doing an Imperial Navy and Titan Legion's army review, as I've said in the past. I wanted to separate this one out because these forces can be used in other armies, not just the Imperial Guard or the Imperial Guard Steel Legion. It's quite a number of forces that end up taking these kind of generic Imperial Titans and Navy and Spacecraft. So we're going to have a look at that today and just go over some thoughts on that. So as I've said, they can go in different armies. So you might find that you turn up to battle as a Space Marine with a Warhound Titan, and your Imperial Guard opponent might have the exact same Titan. So just be prepared for that to happen. The initiative that you get on Titans is 1+, which is great, makes them very reliable. Even if they've taken a blast marker, they're still going to activate on a 2+. And quite honestly, you want them to because you invest a lot of points in them. So you don't want, 650 points worth of Titan to do less than what you need it to do. The initiative on the Navy is a 2+, which is pretty decent and what you'd probably expect. So nothing too drastic there. So let's start looking at Void Shields first, and I've mentioned these before in a previous review, just as to what they do and what they are. Titans are generally protected by shields, and they'll have a number listed on their entry on their data sheet saying, maybe 3 Void Shields, 2 Void Shields, whatever it'll be. Each point of shield will block 1 point of damage, and then it will go down. You don't make saves or take blast markers for the damage blocked. And after your shields are drained, the damage is taken as normal. So the shields are basically blocking point for point of damage. So if you've got 3 Void Shields on your Titan, that's 3 extra damage you can essentially take with your Titan. But you don't have to make armor saves, they just go down straight away. And they also don't cause blast markers if they block damage, so that's pretty good. In Assault, close combat attacks will ignore your Void Shields. So if anyone's in base to base, they'll get through without having to go through the shields. However, anyone with firefight attacks, they'll still be affected by your Void Shields. When your shields are depleted, you can repair them. You'll automatically regenerate 1 every turn in the end phase. And if you do a regroup action on your Titan or the martial action to regroup, you can actually use the dice that you've rolled to either repair shields or remove blast markers, and you can split the dice value between the two. So if you roll a 4 and you can remove 4 blast markers, you could do 2 shields, 2 blast markers. So nice and handy. There are some FAQs on situations arising and questions arising from Void Shields, so we'll go through them now. Do Void Shields stop a point of damage caused by a failed dangerous terrain test, the extra hits from the result of an assault, a blast marker on a broken formation, or the unit ending its second withdrawal move within 15 centimeters of the enemy? There's just a whole lot of other damage that can happen to your Titan in Epic Armageddon. So do the Void Shields work against this other type of damage? And very simply and straightforwardly, no, it does not. So you take all the other damage that you normally would. Okay, so on to the next question. How many Void Shields go down if a war engine is hit by a Titan killer weapon that causes multiple points of damage? So if it comes in and causes 3 points of damage, how many shields go down? And the answer is 1 per each point of damage, with any leftover being allocated to the unit. So if you took 3 points of Titan killer damage and you had 2 shields, both shields would go down, 1 point would go on to the actual unit itself. Can a formation regroup to repair down Void Shields if it has no blast markers? Very simply, yes you can. If a formation with multiple units with Void Shields regroups, is the number of repaired Void Shields the same for each unit or shared between them? And the answer is you share between them. So if you choose to repair 2 Void Shields, you could give them to 1 unit, or you could give 1 each to both units. So you have that choice there as to who and how you share it. And lastly, are Void Shields considered when determining how many hits a war engine should be allocated? And the answer is no. So this works in formations where you have multiple actual units. So normally you apply enough damage to actually destroy the unit potentially, and then apply any other damage to the next unit. You do not count void shields in this, so you'll find that you might actually have no risk of dying because your shield will block it, and you didn't get enough damage to actually destroy you after that. So as with all the army reviews that we do here on Too Many Games, subjectivity is ahead. I've used these units and formations in the game before. I've had good and bad experiences, and any thoughts I share here today are based on that. You may disagree, and that is fine. I love to hear disagreement, love to hear how you've used these units and how you generally go about that. Do you get good use out of them? Share your tips, share your strategies, share your tactics in the comments below, and let us all learn from one another as we go forward. Starting up, we've got the Thunderbolt Fighter from the Imperial Navy. This is an aircraft that you can use. It's a fighter bomber, so it's not just a fighter. You've got that bombing kind of aspect to it as well. A 6+ armor save, which isn't phenomenal, I won't lie. It's got a decent loadout. Got 3 weapons on this. You've got your multi-lasers, giving you a 30cm range. Got some decent AP and AA there. AT is okay. The underwing rockets have a good AT fire on it at 30cm at 4+. And you've got your Storm Bolter, which again is very short range, but pretty decent AP and a nice AA as well. These are 75 points each, but they come in a formation of 2, so 150 will buy you the Thunderbolts. So not bad. It's fairly well priced. The pros. In this, you do get a couple of cheap interceptors with some decent AA shots. So when they're going in, if they're attacking doing an intercept action, say, against another fighter or a bomber, they get +1 to that AA. So 2 shots coming out. That's not bad. And it's pretty good. They've got the option of strafing, like going in, doing their bombing run, a ground attack, if there's nothing to be on cap for. So you get a bit of flexibility in what they can do. The cons, they're very fragile, very fragile. 6+ armor save is not going to save you very often. If you take a hit, you're probably going down. And there's only 2 in a formation, so you can't really afford to waste them, I would say. So think about how you use them. What's the role of them? I'd put them down as an interceptor. You can do them as a ground attack vehicle, but I think if you're doing that, maybe take the bombers instead. So you got to think through what are they going to do? What's the point? I would say they're mainly on AA duties, and then after you've wiped out the enemy's AA, or it's no longer aircraft, or they're no longer a threat, then send them in to do their bombing run. And they get the big tick from me. They are decent, like they're nothing to write home about, but I'd use them, I'd put them in if you need them and you don't want to take a flak option on ground. Okay, the Marauder Bombers. Now we're looking at a bomber class aircraft here. Thankfully a 4+ armor save, which is good. I don't know why I've left close combat and firefight in there. That is not actually right. But thankfully, the power of editing is great, and it lets me correct those mistakes. So 4+ armor save on this thing. We're looking at a weapon loadout primarily designed for ground attack, but you know what? It's not actually that bad for AA either. So we have a twin las cannon giving us an AT 4+ at 45cm. So that's pretty decent range, decent AT, only 1 shot, which is disappointing. It's got that AA 4+. Just remember, it's a bomber class aircraft, so you can't do intercept actions with these things. But the AA shots are going to be helpful if you're getting intercepted by other aircraft, fighters or fighter bombers. If they come in range of this, it'll be fixed out the front. You'll get an AA 4+ shot against them. So that is quite tasty, I think. A little bit of defense. You got your bomb racks, which gives you 3 barrage points fixed at the front. 15cm, so pretty close. So you're probably going to be going in nice and close with this thing, just to utilize that bomb rack, because that's a big part of your fire there. And then you got 2 twin heavy bolters, again AA 5+. These are a defensive measure as well, so there's quite a bit of I suppose defensive anti-aircraft coming out of this thing to protect itself, which is nice. 125 points will buy you 1, but you have to get 2 in a formation, so you're looking at a significant investment if you want to take the Marauder Bomber. And let's have a look. What do we like about the Marauder Bomber? The 3 barrage points each is pretty good because that's each aircraft. So you're looking at 6 barrage points for the formation going in. There's lots of AA for defense, as I've already said, coming out of it. So 3 shots potentially, which is nice. And you've got that decent armor save of a 4+, making it a lot more durable than what we saw in the Thunderbolt. But you're paying a higher cost, right? So it is expensive, I say. 125 points, that's a decent price for a bomber. But, you know, you're going to feel it when you lose one because you don't have a reinforced armor save or anything. You got one hit that you can take 50-50 when you get shot. So it's limited outside of a bombing use, which is quite short range anyway. So you're not really going to do much with this thing unless you get in and just drop that bomb attack with your bombers there. So you've got to get right on the enemies. So that's a negative. You can't just kind of sit back a bit further out of flak range and just kind of pepper away unless you just want to use that twin las cannon, which is probably a bit of a waste. What role do we have? It's a classic bomber. In a lot of ways, it's kind of your standard bomber for Epic Armageddon. And it does get the tick from me. If you're looking for a bomber, by all means, grab the Marauder Bomber. Okay, getting into some spacecraft now. So we start with the Lunar class cruiser. There's not much to say on these things, really. They've got their bombardment attacks, 3 barrage points at macro weapons. You got your pinpoint attacks. So you'll get a 2+ macro weapons. Titan Killer D3 for 150 points. It's a mixed attack loadout, so this gives you a nice little balance if you're going to take it of going, okay, I need a bombardment with a big template, but I also want that pinpoint attack just to really nail something on the board that perhaps I don't know where it's going to be or I didn't know it was going to be there. The negatives, limited effect on the battle, and I'll get more into that when we get to kind of the verdict on Spacecraft. Yeah, attacks aren't necessarily winning me over. They're okay, but you know, one time in the battle, if you miss with your template or your macro weapon pinpoint doesn't hit, oh well. It's a light bombardment ship. There's nothing here that's going to really destroy the opponent generally, but you know, a bit of extra firepower if that's what you're looking for, it could suit you. I've given it the mixed kind of rating. I don't usually take it, but you know, I suppose it could work. It's not bad, but I don't think it's necessarily great either. What about the Emperor class battleship? That sounds better. You got a bigger orbital bombardment. There you go, 8 barrage points, macro weapon. That's pretty good if you can get that to hit. That's a lot of damage coming out with extra templates. So nice if you can get that working. Slow and steady, so it's not coming in on turn 1 and 2. 150 points, so the same cost. So you're looking at giving up the ability to come in on any turn and have that pinpoint attack for the actual extra bigger bombardment. So that's the pro. It is a bigger bombardment than the other one. The cons is you can't use it turn 1 and 2, and it's going to have a limited effect on the battlefield still. Predicting things on turn 3 and 4 in some ways is harder, but it can also be easier because you know kind of turn 3 or turn 4, you know where the enemy really want to be because you know where the objectives are when you actually plot this. What's the role? It's a medium bombardment ship. It's got a fair bit of firepower. Take it if you want that. Again, I think the jury's out on these. They're okay. They're not bad, but I'll talk more about this in the verdict. Okay, this is probably what everyone's waiting for, the Titan. So we're going to start with the Warhound Titan at first. So we're looking here. These are the small scout Titans. They've War Engine is the type they are. 30 centimeter speed, so pretty decent for a big Titan. 5+ armor save, not great, but it is reinforced if you see in the special rules. 4+ close combat and 4+ firefight, so all decent. Damage capacity of 3 on each Warhound Titan, which is good, and you get 2 void shields. So you've got a bit more toughness there than you might think off that 5+ armor save. It is re-rollable. Your first 2 damage will be blocked, and you can take 3 hits, so that's not too bad. You got 2 guns on this thing. You got a plasma blast gun, which give you 2 macro weapon 2+ shots, so pretty powerful at 45 centimeters. That's a decent range, not phenomenal, but decent. Fixed out the front of the Titan. That comes into play if people are moving around your Titan or you want to do sustained fire. You need to make sure you're pointing in the right direction. It is slow as well. So if you fire this turn, you can't fire next turn. So a bit of a negative. The Vulcan Mega Bolter, again, the same range. That's good. So you just know if you've got it in 45 centimeters, you can shoot both of these. It's fixed in the arms. You got 4 shots, AP3, AT5. So quite honestly, it's an anti-personnel weapon, isn't it? You know, you're looking at hitting your infantry with it. You can do tanks, but you're best off doing anti-personnel attacks with this. 275 points if you buy a single one, or 250 if you buy a formation of 2. And it's nice that you've got the option, because you can just throw one in if you need it in your list or just want one, but you can really invest into it with 2 for 500 points. What are the pros? They're fast. That's pretty fast for a Titan. A lot of Titans are 15, 20 centimeters, so it's got a real kind of fast scout feel to it. It's got a decent amount of firepower still for being a quicker, lighter Titan, and can provide a real threat on the flanks as you go down. Most people don't really want to face this firepower coming out, particularly if they've got cheaper scout units and things. If you've got 2 of these pushing a flank, that's 8 AP3 shots. That's pretty decent. You're probably not going to sustain fire too much with these guys, but so you're not going to get the AP2 as much because you want to keep moving probably. And your void shields, give it some toughness. The cons, it's got a lighter armor for a Titan. 5+ rerollable is decent, don't get me wrong, but it is lighter. The slow on the plasma blast gun is a real con, because being able to shoot that only twice in the game for each Titan is not great. And it can feel like you've got a mismatch in your weapons. You've got that macro weapon 2+, which is great, and particularly you're looking for vehicle targets with that, whereas the AP attacks are quite honestly looking for the AP on the Mega Bolter. You are vulnerable to assault as well. Your void shields won't work, and your close combat and firefight are decent, but you're not exactly going to win all the fights if you get into assault. What's the role? I'd say it's a fast, heavy flanker. It's got that real Scout Titan vibe. It's kind of doing like recon in force almost, but I think it's good to have that speed on a flank. I wouldn't send it up the guts generally, but it's a lot heavier than what you'll find on most flanks of a force. So gets the big tick from me on the Warhound Titan. Moving on, we have a look at the Reaver Titan next. So we're seeing a speed drop here as we come down to 20 centimeters for this. It's a bigger Titan. 4+ armor, so better armor. Better close combat and firefight at 3+ on both. So we're looking substantially better in the stat line than a Warhound, but we'll see the cost is substantially higher. You're looking at a different loadout of weapons. You've got 2 turbo laser destructors, 60 centimeter range, which is good. 4 shots out of each one, so that's 8 shots in total. You've got AP 5+ and AT 3+ fixed in the arms of it. It's a very good AT gun on a 3+. And you've got a rocket launcher, which also is at 60 centimeters. So again, we see that merging of ranges, which is helpful, fixed out the front for 3 barrage points. So pretty decent as well. Damage capacity of 6 on this Titan. So you're looking at the same as 2 Warhound Titans essentially, because you've also got 4 void shields. So very similar in that sense. You've got reinforced armor, so you're re-rolling that 4+ save. And you've got Walker as well, just to help you get into some of the terrain a bit easier. 650 points is what you'll pay for this thing. So it does come at a premium cost. And let's have a look at some pros on it. There's lots of shots coming out of it, and the template being thrown out is pretty decent as well. So 8 shots plus a template. That's a pretty good amount of firepower. And the range on it is really good, 60 centimeters. Decent toughness. You're not going to complain about 6 damage and 4 void shields with a 4+ rerollable. And if you do get into close combat and firefight, you've got pretty good stats too, throwing out 6 attacks at 3+ in either. So overall, lots to like about the Reaver. What's negative about it? The firepower can be, I've written a bit impotent, so a tad impotent. What do I mean by that? It means it's a lot of shots coming out that are not macro weapon shots. When you get Titans, you really like having those big guns, those macro weapon hits, the ones that are just going to, hit another Titan and remove its save and things like that. But you're not getting that here. You're getting a lot of firepower. So particularly AT3's coming out, 8 shots. That's pretty cool. Your little blast marker too. That's good. But sometimes you're going to fire that off, not do much, particularly if you've double moved, which you might have to because you're slow, and you're going to sit there having done nothing and think, wow, 650 points. But it's, that's not the idea necessarily that's going to outshoot everything. It's a big impact piece, isn't it? I've got a long range blaster as the role. Maybe long is a bit too much to say there, but if this guy can get set up in a nice spot with a good field of fire, he can sustain fire, and you find his firepower goes up a lot if he's able to do that. So, bit of a long range blaster. Can use him in a lot of ways, but I've just kind of chucked him in as that. He gets the big tick from me. I do like the Reaver Titan. And let's move on to the big boy now, the Warlord Titan, everyone's favorite one. Dropping the speed again, 15 centimeters. Same armor as the Reaver. Similar stats in assault, but close combat is 2+. So pretty good. If someone wants to get into base contact with you to avoid your shields, that's fine. You've got a 2+ attack. Your damage capacity is 8, so you'll be throwing out 8 attacks for close combat or firefight, so pretty handy. That 4+ is re-rollable with the reinforced armor. You got thick rear armor, so don't try and get this guy basically in the crossfire because it's not going to work. 6 void shields, so taking that to a total of 14 damage that you need to do to him essentially to knock him out, and Walker rule as well, so pretty tough. What weapons do we carry on this beast? Well, we got the Volcano Cannon. That's a long-range weapon that we've seen before on the Shadow Swords. So 90 centimeters, which is great. 2+ macro weapon. So it's a fixed weapon as well, but you're looking at a Titan killer, which is pretty good D3 damage. So the Volcano Cannon, everyone loves the Volcano Cannon. I don't think anyone's got anything negative to say about it. Lots of fun, lots of range. So shoot that off every turn. Gatling Blaster to go alongside this. You're looking at a slight range reduction here, down to 60 centimeters, but still very respectable. 4 shots coming out from it. AP4, AT4. It's a real decent weapon because you do both the same. So you choose what you want to do. I mean, have a think about that, but you're only getting 2 hits generally with it. So another 2 damage coming out onto vehicles or infantry. Still pretty decent. You got 2 turbo laser destructors, as we saw on the last Titan. 60 centimeters, 4 shots, AP5, AT3. You're really looking at favouring the AT on that with the 3+. And this thing will set you back 825 points, which is not the most expensive thing in the game, but it's up there. It's a lot of points to invest into one unit. So, what's good about this guy? Well, he's got tons of shots. He's got a big main gun, that Volcano Cannon, like I said, everyone loves. It's expensive, but everyone loves it. His close combat is really good too. 2+, 8 hits. No one really wants to go up against that. Even if they think they can get through your shields, it's still a lot to take back in return. His firefight is nothing to nothing to sneeze at either there. 3+, so pretty good. He's tough. He's hard to ignore. I mean, you can ignore him, but if he marches up the board to the right spot, then, oh well, good luck. He'll just take some objectives, and he's big enough that he might be able to take 2 objectives. So pretty interesting that your Warlord Titan is just going to be such an impact piece potentially. The negatives are similar in that he needs more macro weapons. It's a lot of firepower coming out from him. You can't be upset by the firepower. But you've got 12 shots and art macro weapons. You're probably going to hit with 6 of them, maybe more, depending what you're shooting. So maybe 8. So it's good, but it's 825 points. So use him well, or it is just going to be an absolute point sink for you. So watch out, choose your targets right, but more importantly, put him where he needs to go. What role do I have him down for? Well, we've got him for a couple of things here. We've got battlefield dominance. He is just that good and that big. He can just dominate a section of the battlefield. If he marches into the right spot, he can say, great, come and fight me. I'm going to stand here and you need to get me off this objective. Or he's an assault titan. I think he's great if you just get him right into the enemy's force and see what he does. One of the things people don't necessarily think of with a Warlord Titan or a big Titan like a Warlord is that they can provide support fire into other assaults as well. So people may not want to assault him directly, but he's also got that supporting fire that he can add to another assault. So he can still be involved in other assaults, and he's quite formidable if he does. He gets the big tick from me, but it is a big points cost to have this guy in your force, so consider that. But he's lots of fun, and you got to do it at least once if you're playing an Imperial army. Okay, what's the verdict? I thought I'd split this into two. We'll do aircraft and spacecraft first, looking at the Imperial Navy, then we'll do the Titans because it is a bit different. Aircraft, they're decent. You're not going to go wrong with them. There's nothing too fancy here. There's nothing too tricky about these aircraft. They're real standard kind of ones. So I think they are decent. They're small formations compared to some forces. That's good and bad. It means the cost is going to be cheaper than some forces out there have. But again, you're not going to have the extra hit points that you might want necessarily. They're fairly vanilla. There's not too much flavor to them. Use them as required. You won't be upset by that. And I think it's good. They give you an option, particularly with the Thunderbolts, for an anti-air roll. If you don't want to take AA and a flak option on ground, you can at least take someone who can go on cap. The bombing won't change your life usually, but it can be a decent strategy and something fun that you want to do. What about spacecraft? Well, I'm fairly cynical on spacecraft in general in Epic Armageddon. You probably know that. These spacecraft don't do transport either, so they're really coming in for their bombardment, which is okay, I guess. It's not a bombardment that I look at and go, yep, I need that in my force every time. You have to consider when you're taking a spacecraft, not only what you get for your points, but also what you're missing out on, because there's an opportunity cost that's lost there. They aren't going to be bodies on the table. They're not going to be sticking around longer than that one turn. That firepower is that one turn only, so they're not going to shoot 3-4 times in a game. And you can't capture objectives, and that's how you win usually in Epic Armageddon. So spacecraft, this might be a bit cynical of me, but overall I leave them in high orbit and don't worry about them generally, at least these spacecraft. So take them if you want, but it won't change your life. All right, what's the verdict on Titans? Hopefully it's a bit more positive than the spacecraft and the aircraft. Let's have a look at the strengths. We'll do a big one on these. Listen, the strengths of Titans, they look great. Titans always look good. The old Titans, newer Titans from Adeptus Titanicus, whatever you want. They look real good. They're real centerpiece models that you can have in your force, so that's a real positive. They're fun to use. They're fun to paint. It's something different. If you're painting an army full of Lehman Russes and infantry, it's great to then throw some paint onto a big Titan. There's always an intimidation or a fear factor that a Titan causes in your opponent, and it can really play into the head games as you kind of messing with them a bit. You chuck it down, they go, oh, okay, I've got to deal with this, or what can he do? And a lot of the time, people fear they're going to do more than what they actually can, so that's quite nice to see. Titans do favour an aggressive playstyle, I think. I think if you're just going to sit up the back and shoot with a Titan at long range, I think you're better off going something else. Maybe look at your Shadow Swords if you're an Imperial Guard player. Maybe if you're a Space Marine player, maybe look at a different army. I think the aggressive playstyle is what they favour, and I think that's how you get the most points and value out of them. They're hard to ignore, as I think I've already said. It's a proactive playstyle, not a reactive playstyle, but so they're hard to ignore if you use them well. So you're really in that aggressive sense again, I guess, but you really want to push them up and try and choose how the enemy actually have to engage you. If you set up in the right spot, then they might have to assault you. They might have to try and come in and challenge you, let you assault them, whatever it might be. You want to try and choose on your terms. You don't want to be responding with your Titan. your void shield, that's a real strength, increase the longevity. But it's not just the extra hit points. I think sometimes we kind of forget just how effective they are because they block those blast markers for damage. So, you know, you think on your Warhound, your Warlord Titan, your first 6 points of damage are 6 blast markers that you don't actually have to take. So I think that's a real cool thing to just keep you effective longer in the game. You also can regenerate them, so don't forget that. Again, I think this favors the aggressive playstyle. If you got, you know, 6 shields, you want to be regenerating 1 every turn. So even on the first turn, don't be afraid to take a hit because you can get that back for free at the end of the first turn. And big guys are hard to move from objectives. Particularly your 2 bigger Titans, your Reaver and your Warlord, they go best when they're threatening objectives, I think, because they're really hard to get off. So consider that. Your Warhounds might play a bit of a different style on the flank, but even then, late game, they're hard to remove from an objective. Scout Titans, so the Warhounds, can outclass a flank. So if you've got 2 Warhounds, it's a big investment on a flank, but you can actually just crush a flank, collapse it. They're quick enough that they can then push through around the back or into the center to kind of support the rest of the force. So it's pretty cool if you have them on a flank. I've done it before, and they just kind of pull in after just getting rid of some of the flankers they come against, and it really scares your opponent. So what are some of the areas of difficulty? Well, they might be fun to paint, but they take longer to paint usually, and you usually want to do a better job on them. So as they are a centerpiece, it's a bit of a difficulty in that you want to paint them well so they look good and people are going to look at them more. So there is a bit of that pressure. They're a massive point sink. Even your cheap Titans are a bit expensive. 275 is okay for the Warhound, but 500 for 2, okay, it's starting to add up a lot quicker. So yeah, they need to be used with finesse in order to get the points back. They are even your Warlord Titan. It's a bit of a blunt instrument, but you still need to use it with finesse in order to maximize the points that you've invested into him. You cannot split fire, which is rough. So often you find that your shots aren't as good as you want because you can't split your fire. You go, I want to shoot these at these vehicles and these guns over here at this infantry, but I can't because in Epic Armageddon, unfortunately, you're shooting it all at the one target. You can nominate what goes on infantry and vehicles, but it'd be nice if you could split that fire. That hurts the more that you have invested into a unit, obviously. They don't. It's usually is probably the word I'm not sure of here. They don't usually get their points back in kills. If they can have a great game and get back 1,500 points if they kill another Titan. But usually you're using them not as a way to get, you know, extra points back, but as a way to actually win the game is ideally what you want. So you're not necessarily going to spend 800 points and get back 800 points. You might only kill 500 worth, but it's an important part in the actual strategy. They're slow, so it's pretty much it. They're not going to run around too quick. Even your Scout Titans, 30 centimeters, pretty good. It's not 35, so they could be quicker. They do lack a bit of a macro punch sometimes, as I've already said, and this is particularly on these Imperial ones that you get. Some of your other Titans in other forces are a bit different, but you're investing so many points. You just wish you had a bit more in the macro weapon department. Like one gun on a big Titan just feels like it's a bit of a lackluster kind of output sometimes. They result in smaller armies with less formations. If you spend 825 points out of your 3,000, say, in an Imperial Guard army on a Titan, you've got to make that up somewhere else. You've got to drop a company of something plus a support formation. So they really do shrink your army down potentially. So you've got to factor that in when you're doing your list building. And be careful. Sometimes if someone does have a hard counter to your Titan, it may ruin your game. This includes, spelled that wrong, includes the lucky death strike shots. You get a couple of lucky death strikes onto a Reaver Titan, say, and all of a sudden you might only have a few wounds left, and you're really worried about what the rest of the game looks like. But I mean, that happens with anything, but it's just because you've got the point sink going into these. If someone can counter them, if someone does have 3 Shadow Swords across from your 2 Warhounds, you start to get a bit concerned. Okay, can I win that fight? You know, and all of a sudden you're not playing proactively like I talked about. You're on the back foot with your Titans. So just watch out for the hard counter and try and avoid that matchup in the battle. Get in a different part of the zone if you in the battlefield if you can, but just be aware of it. So they're a huge hitting impact pieces, these Titans, but high cost, as always, equals high risk. So take them. If they pay off, they pay off. They're fun. They're great. But, you know, I run them sometimes, but not always as a result. Well, we're at the end again. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one today. As always, like, subscribe, that fun stuff. We've got more stuff coming out in the future. Got a few different things planned, and I'll just try and keep up this release schedule. It's pretty good at the moment, but we'll see how long I can keep that up for. So anyway, have a great day. Thanks for watching.